Built in 1898 and located in the heart of Colorado Springs, Patty Jewett is the third oldest public golf course west of the Mississippi. It's also the oldest golf course named after a woman. It was originally known as the Town and Gown Club. The original clubhouse was designed by Willie Campbell and located a few blocks from the golf course, which, at the time, was accessed by horse and buggy. The terrain itself was rough and barren, but that didn't keep golfers away. William Jewett, vice president of the Colorado Springs National Bank, purchased the Town and Gown Club's property in 1910 and changed the name of the course to Colorado Springs Golf Club. 4 years after his wife Patty died in 1919, William Jewett deeded the course to the city with a few important stipulations. The gift shall be known as the Patty Stewart Jewett Memorial Field and maintained in perpetuity by the city for park purposes devoted primarily to golf, and the ground shall be open to all persons over the age of 10. During this era, it was common for places such as neighborhoods and streets, and in this case, a golf course, to be named after wives and daughters of influential businessmen and community. The Patty Jewett Clubhouse, designed by McLaren and built in 1910, is a hub of activity that has a wonderful time-honored charm to it. Many original trophies are on display that chronicle the great competitions played on the course over the years. A classic portrait of Patty Jewett hangs in the great room over the fireplace. There are cozy places to sit and relax and take in the surroundings. Both the clubhouse and the adjoining patio have the most beautiful views of Pikes Peak and the golf course. Pikes Peak, referred to as America's Mountain, is the highest summit of the southern Front Range of the Rocky Mountains. It's the most visited mountain in North America and the second most visited mountain in the world, behind Japan's Mount Fuji. The views from the Patty Jewett property are magnificent. Patty Jewett is more than just a golf course. It's also a neighborhood hub with the Patty Jewett Bar and Grill operating as a restaurant offering to the Old North End and Colorado Springs as a whole. It's not just the golfers who feed into this place, it's the neighborhood and community. Patty Jewett is the cheers of golf, where everybody knows your name. The Patty Jewett Clubhouse is 115 years old. It has seen some changes over those years. Improvements include updated restrooms and ramps for accessibility, atrium, basement, the greening of the golf course, and other changes. Having hosted undoubtedly hundreds of thousands of guests, the clubhouse is in need of additional restoration to keep it thriving and up to date for its ongoing loyal crowd of visitors.
The club was purportedly the third club organized in the United States, according to Marshall Sprague. The club was very popular. It went from a membership of 30 people at the beginning of 1898 to, I believe, 170 people by the end. So people were very happy. Dues were only $3 a month at the beginning. They attracted the professional class, the managerial class. Golf was a burgeoning sport. It became apparent that it was the facilities they had were inadequate, and they decided to move their course. They bought 150 acres north and east of the intersection of Columbia and El Paso Street. And the golf course extended to the east. It had to have gone across over Shook's Run. And it once again was a prairie fairway with sand greens. There are some photographs in this building that show sand greens. You have to have a special mat that you would drag. You would start at the center and drag its way out, so you'd erase all the footprints. So the next group coming along had a surface that they could putt on. William Jewett had come to Colorado Springs in 1893. He was from a family in Ohio. The family was an heir to a railroad fortune. He went through normal education and worked for several firms while he was in Ohio. In 1893, he came to Colorado Springs because he was experiencing respiratory distress. I don't know specifically what. It could have been tuberculosis. There were other respiratory diseases that they also addressed here for the dry climate. But he came here in 1893. He had married Patty Lyle Stewart in 1881. She was of Irish descent. She had to have been quite literate, as evidenced by a couple of items I'll reference later. But she wrote quite elegantly, and she had a very nice hand. Jewett, when he got here, engaged in banking. He eventually rose to be a deputy president of Colorado Springs National Bank. He was on the board of directors as well. He served on the board of directors of the Colorado Springs Trust Company. He also invested heavily in Cripple Creek Mines and rose to be the head of the London Gold Mining Company, which I believe he received a lot of he replenished the wealth of his family. Once again, it was sand greens and a prairie fairway, so it was very rough. By 1907, the members had decided that they needed a new course, and they wanted to have grass, which is difficult to maintain in a place where your average rainfall is 15.5 inches a year. They needed water, they needed the land. A group of individuals got together and decided they would move the course to the north and to the east. They bought 225 acres of land. William Kennan Jewett had been a member he had joined the Town and Gown Club in 1898, and he was later reported as saying, if Colorado Springs wouldn't have had a turf golf course, he wouldn't have built his house here. So that's how ardent he was about being a golfer. Manly Orms and Eleanor, in their book of Colorado Springs, identified that Patty Jewett was a golf enthusiast, and she was very interested in outdoor activities. Obviously from gardening, that's one of them. But in 1907, they said, we want to have a golf course. We want to have greens. And so William Jewett was one of the leaders of that, and they purchased the current area of the golf course, or the beginning of the golf course, in 1909. And they designed this clubhouse, and it was designed by the architectural firm of McLaren and Thomas. They were the premier architectural firm here in Colorado Springs. McLaren and Thomas built much of the Woodman Sanitarium that is now the St. Francis of Assisi home. They built numerous houses around the town. They collaborated on the city auditorium. By that time, their partnership had broken apart. And Charles Thomas had become mayor of Colorado Springs. Thomas was the junior partner in designing this building. This is an interesting blend of Mediterranean revival and craftsman style. Mediterranean revival or Italian Renaissance revival, you see several homes over in the north end reflecting that style. It has smooth surfaces, pillars and balusters, generally a formal entry, but then you have the exposed rafter ends, you have the three dormers on the west-facing side and the massive single dormer on the east-facing side, which were both designed to allow light to enter the interior of the building. It was built by a contractor by the name of Wuben, W-R-U-B-E-N, and the plumbing was installed by St. John's Plumbing. It was intended to have a billiards room, a lounge, a smoking room. They were supposed to have lily pond outside with landscaped grounds. it was one of the most interesting things about the golf course was that from the very beginning, women were allowed to play. They were allowed to join. Now, they couldn't play on Saturdays. That held until 1931 when the women finally challenged the prohibition against women playing on Saturdays. It used to be they were allowed the afternoons. But women did receive a break on the rates. By the 1930s, it was $33 a year for men and $23 a year for women. But women were allowed, and that was regarded as somewhat noteworthy because golf is a manly sport. Okay, in 1917, Patty Jewett was falling ill, and they moved to Pasadena, California, in an attempt to regain her health. The Jewetts had moved to California. Mrs. Jewett passed, but William Jewett still had a deep affection for the Town and Gown Golf Course. Now, he managed to assemble all the stock in the Suburban Land and Water Company, which owned the land and provided the water for this golf course. The club was a tenant of the Suburban Land and Water Company. By 1919, Jewett had assembled all the stock of the Suburban Land and Water Company, and he announced he was going to gift the golf course and the clubhouse to the city of Colorado Springs. It was at that time that they changed the name from the Colorado Springs Golf Club to the Patty Stewart Jewett Memorial Field. When William Jewett decided to give the course to the city, he had several conditions attached to it. He did include a $15,000 endowment to help pay for the cost of it, but he insisted that it not become a children's playground. Now, any person of good moral character over the age of 10 were allowed to come on and use the facility, but it was not intended to be a area for toddlers and children. Some of the other limits that they had, it was not to turn a profit. The city was a little hesitant about accepting the gift. They saw the maintenance costs as being challenging, and was less than enthusiastic receptor of the gift, but they did receive it. By 1926, there were issues questioning whether the city population would be enough to support the golf course. It had not turned out to be as popular as they had hoped. And Charles Thomas, who by then had passed from being mayor of Colorado Springs, identified that if the city population does not support the golf course, it will be returned to William Jewett's estate. The community rebounded. And it was later that year that Jewett was sufficiently impressed by the response that he commissioned the gate, which is now at the entry to the Patty Jewett Golf Course over at Espanola Street. Thomas did design that as well. It's really interesting. Thomas had a long history with this neighborhood. He lived here in a couple of locations, including during the time that he was mayor. Jewett passed away back in the 1940s. He continued his interest in golf to the end of his days, and his visage is memorialized in a bronze bust, which sits right outside the veranda of the restaurant.
So ever since I started here, when I walk in the door here, I feel especially into that lobby. Patty Jewett is looking at all of us. And when I think that they stepped on these floors, because those are the original windows over the archway here, the one on the outside of the lobby, and I feel they have walked through here, they have been here, and that's where I came up 7 years ago with, we need to put it back to the glory and to the beauty that it was. And that's where the concept came up that we do a fundraiser to do this, because they gave this to the community. And when I had to go before the Parks and Recreation Board, I did take the director and some people that were here out in the lobby and had them look at Patty Jewett, and I said, do you think she's happy? I had always talked about the fireplaces because I felt it would be such beauty when they come in and it's snowing outside. And Pat did graciously have the fireplace in the lobby repaired. And Charlie Patterson, a retired contractor here, is the one that donated his time to do the scope of work of the things we want done. And I told him I know nothing what I'm doing. I do not have the knowledge I knew anything. And Charlie told me, he said, Sally, you just need the enthusiasm. We can get the experts to do everything else. And that's where we are. So now we need the experts to help us get that money. And we have some things planned in the future. And being that I said I was impatient, I want it done now. I want this done so that she can overlook her lobby and her building with pride and the beauty that it can be. In our minds, the timeline is we want it done by 2026. I don't know if that's feasible, but in my mind, it can be done. Carpeting, lighting in here. I don't know if you noticed the wall going from one end to the other from in front of the building here. One day we're going to come and it's not going to be there. It's just going to be gone. Pro shop needs lighting. Furniture, definitely. Those are the things. And we hope to have it not back in the 1910s, not that, but in that era. And that's what we're shooting for, and that's what I hope we do.
In 1919, William Jewett deeded the golf course to the city. In his deed, he put in there that money made here must stay here. So it's basically an enterprise statement that the city put into their thing. So it was deeded to the city, but the city couldn't generate any revenue from it, or then we could not receive any kind of sales tax or property tax to help in our support of our operation. So as an enterprise of the city of Colorado Springs, we collect no property tax, no sales tax from the city. The city operations and their general fund pays the golf course $0. So we are not a tax-supported operation at all. We are funded merely from our user fees. So for us here at Patty Jewett, user fees would include the green fees and cart fees and a percentage of the restaurant fees in their sales. So that is otherwise we are in charge of, all the money we make here stays here, pays for the operation, pays for the daily, like the daily operation, capital improvements, and anything that goes with that. That's how we operate. There are some known heirs, yes. I think Patty just passed away a few months ago. So Patty was the great niece of William Jewett. And she actually came out in 1998. We did a 100-year celebration. We flew her out here to be part of this. And the big celebration we had, so we were 100 years since the golf course opened. We had a great day, we had a lot of fun. She came out, signed some autographs on some golf balls for people, and her name was Patty Jewett. So, but yeah, she had just recently passed away, but the person that wrote me, it seems like there is a lot of Jewett heirs back east, that are still around. So, there have been stories that there are ghosts in this building. Like I said, the building was built in 1910. Things have been renovated, things have changed, but there's an office upstairs that used to, we believe at the time in 1910 came around. It was probably from Willie Campbell, who was the golf designer, golf pro. We believe that was his residence. at the time this facility was built. It's probably the only thing that would make sense that we would have an on-staff person that would be here at the time. So people have mentioned that they have seen somebody that they believe could be Willie Campbell smoking a cigar, sitting on the stairs as you would walk up, and they could feel his presence and they could see him smoking a cigar. So whether or not that's true, I have not seen that in my 30 years here. But we did have a janitorial company come in, and they usually do janitorial services at night. One day we walked in, the vacuum's still plugged in, lights were still on, the doors weren't open, or the doors were still open. The janitor's not here to be seen. Called the company and asked where they were at, and the janitor basically said he would never come back here because he had seen something and he will never come back here again. So we don't know exactly what he saw, but he did say, I will never come back. And he hasn't come back.
The only thing I've heard about ghosts is that there's the ghost of Patty Jewett. Yes. And that the eyes on that portrait of her will follow you. And I know when Paul Ransom was young, he was the head pro here in the 70s, 80s, 90s. At one point, he lived in the basement. And he always thought there was something going on. He always thought he heard voices and names when he was down there. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us to tell us the stories. But he was fascinated. He swears there was someone wandering around this building.
There is a I don't know if you want to call it a room, whatever, downstairs that I've never gone back, but I've looked in there. It's a very narrow room, and at the end a chair sits. And people before my time said that somebody was sitting there. This morning, our superintendent came in, and his dog, I don't know if you've seen him, Guinness rides in the cart all over this golf course with him and comes every day. It's a black lab. And he told me that lab will not go down the basement. And he stays right by the superintendent's side. But when the superintendent goes down in the basement, the dog will sit up here at the stair and will not go down. So that kind of tells you there's something down there.